November 6th, Las Vegas, Nevada. A city known for its bright lights and endless energy. But in a quiet 55-plus community on the outskirts of town, something is very wrong. An employee of the residential community has grown increasingly concerned about one of their residents. Monique Gilbertson, a 68-year-old woman who has always been reliable, predictable, and in constant contact with the front office, has suddenly gone silent. No phone calls, no check-ins, no response to knocks on her door. For 2 weeks, no one has seen or heard from her. Other residents have reported hearing suspicious activity coming from her home. Strange noises, unfamiliar voices, things that don't add up. The employee decides it's time to call for help. A welfare check is requested. Can I have a request for a wellness check on a resident? When was the last time you heard or seen her? The last time she called the office was on October 22nd. We've knocked on her door. Her dogs are going insane, which they wouldn't do if she was okay. When I called the first time, it went to voicemail. I called again. Someone answered, didn't say anything. I kept saying hello, hello, and then they hung up. The dispatcher asks for more details. The employee explains that Monique had called about 2 weeks ago reporting a roommate issue. She had found a gun among her roommate's belongings and felt unsafe. That was the last time anyone at the front office heard from her. Police immediately respond to the call. Within minutes, marked units arrive at Monique's residence. Officers approach the front door, unaware that they are about to step into something none of them will ever forget. They knock. Movement inside. Someone is home. The door opens slightly, and standing there is a man officers will soon learn is Daniel Roosh. Oh damn. I'm so sorry. I was just getting out of the shower. How are you? Officers immediately notice something off about the situation. The man appears nervous, evasive. He's wearing a towel, claiming he just got out of the shower, but something about his demeanor doesn't match his words. Officers ask the critical question, "Where is Monique?" The man's response is immediate. "I rent this place." Officers ask again, "What's your name?" "My name is Jaslyn. Where's Monique at?" "Monique is, I'm house sitting right now." "She left town for a while." Officers exchange glances. This doesn't make sense. "Where is she?" No, she didn't." "Where is she?" "No, she really did." "I swear." The inconsistencies are already piling up. First, Daniel claims he rents the place. Moments later, he changes his story to house sitting. Officers know something is wrong. Not only does no one at the front office have any record of Daniel being there, but Monique's car is parked right outside the front of the home. If she truly left town as Daniel claims, why is her car still here? "It's weird that you are being very defensive about this." Officers sense deception immediately. Their training kicks in. When someone is being truthful, they cooperate. They provide clear, consistent answers. Daniel is doing the opposite. He's defensive. His story shifts. He's creating barriers. Officers press harder, determined to get inside the home and confirm Monique's whereabouts. But what they don't yet realize is that the truth is far worse than they could possibly imagine. Just feet away, inside this house, lies evidence of something so disturbing it will haunt these officers for the rest of their careers. To understand what happened here, we need to understand who Monique Gilbertson was. Monique was 68 years old and lived in a 55-plus residential community in Las Vegas. These communities are designed for older adults seeking peace, security, and a sense of belonging. Residents know each other. They look out for one another. The front office maintains regular contact with everyone, ensuring safety and well-being. Monique was known as someone who followed routines. She called the front office regularly. She was in constant communication. She never went anywhere without her dogs. Her neighbors knew her habits, her schedule, her patterns. When Monique suddenly went silent, people noticed immediately. Several months before her disappearance, Monique met Daniel Roosh at a Home Depot. The encounter seemed innocent enough. They struck up a conversation. Daniel appeared friendly. He mentioned he was looking for a place to stay. Monique, known for her generous nature, offered to help. She allowed Daniel to stay with her in exchange for helping around the house. It seemed like a mutually beneficial arrangement. Monique would get help with tasks that were becoming difficult as she aged. Daniel would have a place to stay. But the arrangement didn't last long. Tensions began to grow. Neighbors reported hearing arguments. The home, once well-maintained, began to deteriorate. Monique suspected Daniel and his wife, Gina Lopez, were stealing from her. She noticed items missing, money disappearing, trust eroding. Text messages later recovered by police showed that Monique was actively trying to force Daniel out. She wanted him gone. She no longer felt safe in her own home. She had even called the front office about finding a gun among Daniel's belongings, expressing her fear and concern. But before she could successfully remove him from her home, something terrible happened. And now, standing at her front door, officers are trying to piece together what that something was. Back at the residence, Daniel continues to deflect. Officers ask how he can contact Monique. I call her usually on her cell phone, but she called me yesterday from her friend's cell phone because she said her cell phone got lost, so she had to pause her cell phone. You know what I mean? But yeah, I usually call. She usually calls on her cell phone. I talked to her a couple days ago. I'm watching the dogs right now and watching the birds. Officers immediately spot another problem. Yeah, so from the front office, she doesn't go anywhere without her dogs. This is a critical piece of information. Everyone who knows Monique confirms this fact. She never leaves without her dogs. Never. Yet Daniel is claiming she left town for an emergency, leaving her beloved animals behind. The story makes no sense. Officers push for a phone number. Do you have a phone number we can contact her on? I mean, like, I usually call her on her 505 number. Okay, but what number did you get a phone call from? Daniel stumbles. He can't provide a clear answer. He says he'd have to look through his phone. Officers aren't buying it. Come outside. The tension escalates. Daniel refuses to step outside. He becomes increasingly agitated, claiming he has rights, that he has paperwork proving he's allowed to be there. Officers remain firm. You need to step outside right now. I am giving you a legal and lawful command. If you do not obey that command, I'm going to take you to jail. Daniel's response reveals his desperation. But I have rights. I can call my attorney. First off, Monique's not here, and I have the paperwork right here for it. Officers recognize the signs. Daniel is stalling. He's trying to control the situation, to prevent officers from entering the home. Every tactic he uses, every excuse he makes, only increases suspicion. Notice how Daniel's story continues to shift. When asked about contacting Monique, he provides a convoluted explanation about cell phones being paused and friends' numbers. When pressed about her leaving without her dogs, he claims it was an emergency involving her brother on the East Coast, but he can't say where exactly. He admits he's only known her a few months and doesn't know her that well. Yet he expects officers to believe she trusted him enough to leave him alone in her home with all her possessions, her car, and her beloved animals. The inconsistencies are glaring. Officers know they need to get inside that house. So you have no way of contacting her. I used her cell phone number. Like I said, her cell phone's on pause right now. Officers have already checked. They have Monique's cell phone number. It's not on pause. It's simply not being answered. You have her cell phone? Cell phone number. What number did she call you on yesterday? Daniel can't answer. He would have to look through his phone. Officers tell him to step outside so they can check the welfare. Daniel refuses, saying he needs to tell his wife what's going on. He mentions for the first time that his wife is also inside. Officers immediately request both occupants step outside. You and her need to step out. The situation grows more tense. Daniel claims they're doing nothing wrong. Officers explain they're not accusing them of wrongdoing, but they have a legal obligation to check on Monique's welfare. Front office knows nothing about anyone staying here that's not her. Daniel insists Monique told the front office about him. Officers confirm this is false. They just spoke with the front office. No one knew Daniel was there. Monique never mentioned anyone else living with her. She was always in contact with the office, calling multiple times a day. Then suddenly, silence. Her car still parked outside. No one has heard from her since October 22nd. It's now November 6th, 2 weeks of nothing. The problem is that you're super suspicious being here and we have no idea where Monique is. That's the problem. Daniel continues to insist he's been there since September, that several people know, that Monique told someone she talks to regularly. But officers confirm that all security personnel, the front office, and the HOA have no record of Daniel being there. None. What they do know is that Monique's car is sitting out front with a man's hat and some rope inside. And most critically, she never leaves without her dogs, according to everyone who knows her. Daniel's explanations grow weaker. He keeps saying he's just house-sitting, that there was an emergency, that he can't control what happened. Officers press their advantage. So if that's the case, then why won't you let us in to make sure she's not here? Daniel's response is telling. You can. Yeah, but here's the thing. Like, I don't want you guys trying to do anything to me. This is classic deflection. He's trying to portray himself as the victim, suggesting officers might harm him or falsely accuse him. Officers remain professional. No, I want to go inside so I can confirm Monique's whereabouts. For reasons that can only be assumed, Daniel repeatedly tries to move deeper into the home, away from officers. But officers, now suspecting the worst, refuse to let him out of their sight. When that strategy fails, Daniel pivots to playing the victim more aggressively. What have I done wrong? Officers explain they're there to check welfare because they have concerns for the safety of the woman who lives there. That is not you. You need to step out so I can check the welfare in this house. The standoff continues. Daniel mentions his wife is in the shower. Officers tell him to call her out. Daniel tries multiple times to go inside to get her, but officers won't let him leave their sight. Eventually, after prolonged negotiation, Daniel and his wife Gina Lopez agree to step outside. With the home's occupants secured, officers prepare to enter. They have no idea what they're about to find. Armed officers move into the residence, their body cameras recording every moment. What they discover inside is immediately concerning. Hi. The house is in complete disarray. Animal feces cover the floors. The smell is overwhelming. Dog urine is everywhere. Officers navigate carefully through the filth. This place is just gross, dude. Drug paraphernalia is scattered throughout multiple rooms. Officers note what appears to be evidence of drug use. There's a strong lingering odor that puts everyone on edge. They search methodically. Living room, bedroom, bathroom, kitchen. Every space where a person could be, but Monique is nowhere to be found. Officers check closets, under beds, behind furniture. Nothing. Is that blood? Officers notice what might be bloodstains but aren't certain. The condition of the home makes it difficult to determine what they're looking at. Inside, the home is in complete disarray. Animal feces cover the floors. Drug paraphernalia is scattered throughout the rooms, and a strong, lingering odor hangs in the air, immediately putting officers on edge. They search every corner of the house, but Monique is nowhere to be found. With no sign of her, officers begin preparing to leave. The search seems complete, but then something stops them in their tracks. What is this? An officer has noticed something in one of the rooms, a large chest freezer. It's sitting against the wall, and there's something unusual about it. A freezer. Officers approach carefully. Where's it locked at? It's right here, I think. The freezer has a padlock on it, a small Allen key lock securing the lid. Officers look at each other. Why would someone padlock a freezer shut? In a home this chaotic, this neglected, why take the time to lock a freezer? Dude, if there's a body in here, dude, I swear to God. The officer's words hang in the air. No one wants to think it, but everyone is thinking it. Something is wrong. Something is very wrong. Officers call for a locksmith. They need to get this freezer open, but they need to do it properly, by the book. They wait. The tension builds. Other officers arrive. Everyone stands around the freezer, dreading what might be inside, but knowing they have to look. The locksmith arrives and begins working on the lock. He's freaking out, saying we can't open it. Even the locksmith senses something is wrong. The atmosphere in that room is thick with dread. Officers can smell something. It's faint but unmistakable. I know the smell. I can tell. I smell something bad. Oh, mother. The lock finally gives way. Officers prepare themselves, hearts racing. One officer reaches for the freezer lid. I swear to God, bro, my heart's racing right now. Mine too. I don't want to see it. Just give me a second. The lid lifts. Oh, you got a whiff. There's something in there. The smell confirms what they feared. There's a person in here. Go get him a handcuff. God damn it. She's stuffed in the freezer. Inside the chest freezer, officers find the body of Monique Gilbertson. Her 68-year-old body has been placed inside and the freezer locked shut. Is there any obvious signs of trauma? Officers try to assess the scene professionally, but the horror of the discovery is overwhelming. I'm never going on a call with you again. I can't, dude. I can't. She's stuffed in the freezer. Mother of God, man. That's 2 weeks in a row. I'm not coming to work next week, guys. These are veteran officers who have seen terrible things in their careers. But this, finding an elderly woman's body locked in a freezer in her own home, shakes them to their core. Following the discovery of Monique's body, Daniel Roosh and his wife Gina Lopez were immediately arrested. Both were taken into custody and separated for questioning. At first, Daniel claimed he found Monique unconscious, surrounded by drug paraphernalia. He told police he panicked when he realized she wasn't breathing. He said he didn't know what to do, so he placed her body in the freezer. His story portrayed him as someone who made a terrible decision in a moment of panic, not as someone who caused her death. But investigators knew there was more to the story. They transported Monique's body to the medical examiner's office for autopsy. What the medical examiner discovered changed everything. The autopsy revealed that Monique Gilbertson had more than 200 times the lethal dose of fentanyl in her system. 200 times. This was not accidental. This was not a case of someone taking drugs recreationally and overdosing. This was a massive, deliberate administration of a deadly substance. Fentanyl is an extremely potent synthetic opioid. Even tiny amounts can be lethal. The amount found in Monique's system was so excessive that medical examiners knew immediately this was homicide. Someone had given her enough fentanyl to kill multiple people. Someone wanted to make absolutely certain she would not survive. With this information, investigators returned to question Daniel and Gina. The pressure increased. The evidence was mounting. And finally, Gina Lopez came forward with the truth. Police learned the full story of what happened in the months leading up to Monique's death. After months of living together, the arrangement between Monique and Daniel had broken down completely. Monique suspected Daniel and Gina were stealing from her. Money was missing. Valuables disappeared. Arguments escalated over hygiene and cleanliness. The home, once well maintained, had deteriorated into the chaotic, filthy state officers discovered. Monique had reached her limit. She wanted Daniel and Gina out of her home. She told them they needed to leave. Text messages recovered from Monique's phone showed she was actively trying to force the couple out. She had called the front office about finding a gun among Daniel's belongings. She was taking steps to reclaim her home and her safety. But Daniel didn't want to leave. He had found a place to stay. He wasn't paying rent. He had access to Monique's home, her belongings, her resources. According to prosecutors, Daniel decided that if he couldn't stay willingly, he would take control by force. Prosecutors alleged that Daniel responded to Monique's attempts to evict him by administering massive amounts of fentanyl in an attempt to kill her and take control of the home. The evidence suggests this was premeditated. The amount of fentanyl required to reach 200 times the lethal dose doesn't happen by accident. Someone had to obtain the drug. Someone had to administer it to Monique, likely without her knowledge. Someone had to ensure she received enough to be certain she would die. And when she did die, someone made the calculated decision to place her body in a freezer, lock it shut, and continue living in her home as if nothing had happened. For 2 weeks, Daniel and Gina lived in Monique's house. They used her belongings. They stayed in her space. And all the while, her body was locked in that freezer. When the front office called, someone answered and hung up. When people came to the door, Daniel told them Monique had left town for an emergency. He created an elaborate story about her brother on the East Coast, about her cell phone being paused, about house-sitting arrangements. He did everything possible to maintain the illusion that Monique was alive and simply away from home. But the evidence didn't support his story. Her car never moved. Her dogs never left. The front office, which had been in constant contact with Monique for years, suddenly couldn't reach her. Neighbors heard suspicious activity. Everything pointed to the truth that Daniel was desperately trying to hide. When officers finally forced entry for the welfare check, Daniel's web of lies began to unravel. Every contradiction, every deflection, every moment of his resistance was captured on body camera footage. Daniel Rausch was indicted on multiple charges including second-degree murder, abuse of an older or vulnerable person, and drug-related felonies. The charges reflect the severity of what prosecutors believe he did. Second-degree murder acknowledges that while this may not have been planned long in advance, it was an intentional act that resulted in death. The abuse of an older or vulnerable person charge recognizes that Monique was particularly defenseless. At 68 years old, living alone, trusting someone she thought was helping her, she was in a vulnerable position that Daniel allegedly exploited. The drug-related felonies addressed the fentanyl used in the crime. Gina Lopez was charged with residential burglary and drug possession. Prosecutors determined that while she may not have directly administered the fentanyl, she was complicit in what happened. She lived in the home knowing Monique's body was in the freezer. She participated in maintaining the deception that Monique had left town. She benefited from staying in the home without paying rent. Her charges reflect her role in the crime, even if that role was less direct than Daniel's. The case remains ongoing as of this recording. Daniel faces the possibility of a life sentence if convicted on all charges. The evidence against him is substantial. Body camera footage captured his lies and contradictions. The autopsy revealed the massive overdose. Gina's testimony provided insight into what happened. Forensic evidence from the home will likely connect Daniel to the administration of the fentanyl. For the community where Monique lived, her death was devastating. Residents of 55-plus communities choose to live there for safety and security. They look out for one another. They maintain contact. They build relationships based on trust. The idea that someone could enter that community, gain the trust of a resident, and then murder her in her own home violated everything these communities are built on. The front office employee who called for the welfare check likely saved the investigation. Without that call, it's unclear how long Daniel and Gina would have continued living in Monique's home with her body hidden in the freezer. Days? Weeks? The call ensured that officers discovered the truth while evidence was still fresh and while Daniel and Gina were still present. For the officers who responded to that welfare check, the experience will stay with them forever. They went in expecting a routine call, perhaps an elderly woman who had fallen or needed medical assistance. Instead, they discovered a homicide scene. The body camera footage shows their genuine shock and horror when they opened that freezer. These are professionals trained to handle difficult situations, yet even they were shaken by what they found. The discovery of Monique's body in that locked freezer represents a profound betrayal of trust. Monique opened her home to someone in need. She offered help to a stranger. She tried to be generous and kind, and according to prosecutors, that generosity was repaid with theft, exploitation, and ultimately murder. This case serves as a sobering reminder of the vulnerabilities faced by older adults living alone. Monique was in regular contact with her community. She had support systems in place. The front office checked on residents. Neighbors were aware of each other. Yet someone was still able to enter her life, gain her trust, and allegedly harm her. It highlights the importance of those support systems. If the front office hadn't maintained regular contact with Monique, if neighbors hadn't noticed the suspicious activity, if the employee hadn't called for a welfare check, this case might have gone unsolved. The community's vigilance, their attention to changes in routine, their willingness to call for help when something seemed wrong, these actions ensured justice had a chance. The case also demonstrates the critical role of body camera footage in modern policing. Every moment of the officer's interaction with Daniel was recorded. Every lie, every contradiction, every attempt to deflect was captured on video. That footage is now evidence that prosecutors can use in court. It shows Daniel's state of mind, his awareness of wrongdoing, his attempts to prevent officers from discovering the truth. Without body cameras, it would be Daniel's word against the officer's testimony. With body cameras, there is no dispute about what was said and done. For Monique's family and friends, her death leaves a void that can never be filled. She was 68 years old. She should have had years ahead of her to enjoy her retirement, to spend time with loved ones, to live in peace in the community she had chosen. Instead, her life was allegedly stolen by someone she had tried to help. The pain of that betrayal, the horror of how she died, the knowledge of what happened in her final moments, these are burdens her loved ones will carry forever. As the case moves through the court system, they wait for justice. They wait to see if Daniel Rouche will be held accountable for what prosecutors say he did. They wait to hear the full truth of what happened in those final days of Monique's life. The locked freezer has become a symbol of this case, a symbol of hidden evil, a symbol of deception, a symbol of a truth that someone desperately tried to conceal. When officers opened that lock and lifted that lid, they exposed not just a body, but a crime that might otherwise have remained hidden. They brought light to darkness. They gave Monique a voice when she could no longer speak for herself. Justice for Monique Gilbertson is still pending. The trial will determine whether Daniel Rouche is guilty of the charges against him. The legal process will examine the evidence, hear testimony, and reach a verdict. But regardless of what happens in court, one truth remains. Monique deserved better. She deserved to live out her years in peace and safety. She deserved to have her generosity honored, not exploited. She deserved to be remembered not for how she died, but for how she lived. Rest in peace, Monique Gilbertson. Your life mattered. Your kindness mattered. Your memory will endure in the hearts of all who knew you, and in the community that fought to find the truth about what happened to you. Thank you for watching this true crime documentary. If you found this case compelling and appreciate thorough investigative coverage, please like and subscribe for more in-depth documentaries. Remember to look out for the vulnerable people in your community, to notice when someone's routine changes, and to call for help when something doesn't feel right, because sometimes that call can make all the difference. See you in the next video.